After months of being in a creative slump and not motivated and have little to no drive, I decided that I would buy myself a laptop. And in my case, I bought this laptop right here. This is an M1 MacBook Air, and it has 16 gigabytes of memory, 512 gigabytes of storage, and it was also refurbished, and it completely shattered my creative slump. But the question I've had, and I keep asking myself, is why? Why did this laptop just smash my creative slump when my workstation over here just pushed me deeper and deeper into that creative slump when I was working on it? What made this laptop so much more special? Well, first of all, freedom. Freedom to be able to leave your studio. So the laptops allot you that freedom to be able to leave and go work somewhere else if you need to. And the fact is simple, like, being trapped in a room will never be good for your sanity, creativity, productivity, or anything else. So the idea of being able to get out of the house and go to a coffee shop or go to my local diner or do anything else and still work and still get work done was massive for me. And I really believe that you can't underestimate the fact or the reality or the idea of a path that was previously blocked being unblocked, which is what the M1 MacBook Air does for me. You then have the idea of ease of use. The latest macOS is absolutely incredible when it comes to that. Not only are the trackpad gestures super intuitive, but they also make navigating throughout the OS almost foolproof. And look, I've built tons of Windows PCs throughout my years. I've been building since I was like 10 years old. I've also played with Linux, and I had a MacBook Pro back in 2014 while I was in college. And if I'm honest, I've basically tried it all. And the fact is that macOS, the latest macOS, just feels so user-friendly. It's insane. It's way more user-friendly than Windows, in my opinion, and it just works really well for any creatives out there. And it also works really well with something like an iPhone, which I have. So if I'm in a pinch and I need to get a shot of B-roll and I don't feel like grabbing my mirrorless camera here, then I can just grab my phone, take the shot, and easily airdrop it over to my computer. I've tried to transfer files from my phone to my workstation Windows PC. It's just not very friendly to do, and it's not very fun, and you typically lose quality when you're in the process of it, or it takes a very long time. AirDrop, on the other hand, is super quick, super easy, and super intuitive to use. And then we have the fact that it's enough, basically, for the most part. It's not perfect on everything, but it's really, really good. In fact, I actually sold my RTX 3080 and my Ryzen 9 5950X that I had in my workstation so that I could build the setup that you see behind me. And while they're absolutely tanks when it comes to productivity, the RTX 3080 and the Ryzen 9 5950X, they're absolute tanks. They didn't help me in the creative process. But this did. This MacBook Air had. I just felt drained all the time because of working on this PC and not feeling like I could actually leave the room, feeling trapped overall. And I get how bratty that sounds. I had an RTX 3080 and a Ryzen 9 5950X. I had an absolute monster PC. But the reality is that sometimes raw power isn't the most important part of creating stuff, creating content. Sometimes what's more important is the idea, the freedom, or just the feeling of being able to get out of the house and do something else, or just being able to go for a walk, or just being able to sit at a coffee shop, the creative process. And sometimes what you need isn't just raw power. Sometimes what you need is enough, whatever is enough to get the job done. And really the M1 processor inside the MacBook Air is enough for most people. I would gander for 95% of creators, really. You see, all my day-to-day workflows, that's including DaVinci Resolve, Photoshop, Lightroom, all that kind of workflow, it works perfectly fine on the M1 MacBook Air. In fact, I've actually been blown away at how well it does in video editing, because I was very, very, very concerned with how well it would do. But overall, it does pretty good. Now, it does get bogged down with heavy SFX, color grading, or GFX. It does. I've seen this thing lag pretty hard when I've gotten into videos that needed a lot more. But if I'm being real, what exactly are we asking of or from this laptop overall? How can I expect performance on par with an RTX 3080 or a Ryzen 9 5950X when it's just like $1,000 laptop? I think this one was like $1,200 or $1,300 overall. But how can you expect that much performance out of something that small? What we're looking for here is portability, being able to take the laptop with us on the go and trying to get work done somewhere else if we need to spark some creativity. By the way, I still think it's a great value for content creators or for somebody who just wants a good quality laptop here in 2022, even with the M2 Air supposed to come out by the end of the year. Will it come out? It might. Will it not? Maybe not. I still think this will be a great value for you either case. And a laptop like this does have drawbacks. I know I've been singing its praise today, but there are drawbacks with a laptop like this. Of course, it's not optimized for gaming right now, although it does pretty decently in some titles I've tested. I've played Civ 6, World of Warcraft, League of Legends, all with no issues. But on the other hand, games like Terraria aren't optimized yet, and so even though it can be played on a low spec Windows system, it's nearly unplayable here, and it almost always crashes on exit. And this issue is apparent throughout all of optimization with the M1 chips. I get that it's been out for 2 years now, and they have optimized quite a bit since it's been launched, but it's still not there yet, especially in like pro level software such as like AutoCAD. And with the M1 Ultra coming out recently and the Mac Studio coming out recently, I feel like there's gonna be a massive push forward, in the next couple of months, in the next couple of years. We're gonna see a big move forward with these ARM-based processors, but still optimization right now here in 2022, at the beginning of 2022, it's still pretty rough in some titles, in some games, in some programs, and so forth. And yes, I totally understand there's Rosetta 2, and it works pretty good, although it doesn't do nearly as well as like native options. And for me, I've actually had more issues with non-native options going through Rosetta 2 than I have with native options. In fact, I don't think there's been a single native option that I've had crash or have issues with at all. It's always been options that were going through Rosetta 2, which is fine because Rosetta 2 is doing a lot of work on this, but it's still something to keep in mind. It's worth mentioning here too. And then we also have the display, which is kind of a double-edged sword for me. It's only 13 inches, which is good and bad, as I just mentioned. While 13 inches is the perfect size for traveling, in my opinion, or taking notes or scripting, it's not very fun to video edit on. In fact, it's quite frustrating if you ask me. Yes, you can work on it in a pinch, but it's certainly not something I'd suggest doing often. So if you decide to get a laptop like this, you'd likely want to get a setup like I do, where if you're in the office or in your home studio or whatever it might be, you can just plug it in and have a bigger monitor to do the video editing, Photoshop, whatever else you might want to do on that. Because again, 13 inches is pretty small for that kind of work. And then finally, we have the Apple tax. And I get that the Apple tax is kind of like vanishing a little bit, but it's also not. While it doesn't seem so bad, as I've seen the base model MacBook Air for as little as $850, the Apple tax comes in upgrade premium. So to upgrade the actual system, it's a lot more money than it would be if you just bought the raw part. And so for example, it's an extra $200 to upgrade your storage from 256 to 512, or upgrade your memory from 8 gigabytes to 16 gigabytes, which if you're a content creator, I would highly recommend bumping that memory up for sure. And then if you want to upgrade the storage even more, you're looking at an extra $200 per 512 gigs you go on top of that. So if you want to go to 1 terabyte, you're looking at an extra $200. If you want to go from 1 terabyte to 2 terabytes, I believe that's an extra $400 on top of that. So you're looking at spending a lot of money on upgrading the internal storage if that's the route you want to go. But you could always maybe go a different route when it comes to storage, and that's why I'd recommend watching this video right here, where I'm going to show you guys how to make a DIY external SSD, and it's going to save you a ton of money, and it's going to be plenty fast enough for video editing from, or doing photo editing, or even storing your games on, storing other files and that kind of stuff. So go ahead and watch that video right there. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys over in that next video.